Welcome to the Truth Show Deluxe, and in this video I will be talking about reincarnation. Is it real and how does it work? It has been speculated and debated on reincarnation being real or not. But believe it or not, reincarnation goes all the way back to ancient Egyptian times. They used to mummify themselves in hoping to be born again. Here is a video that would explain the contents of the soul from the Egyptians' point of view.
And as time passes, people die. The ancient Egyptians knew this just as well as anybody else, but they took precautions to make sure the soul got to the next life intact. The next life was said to be in the west, and an ancient Egyptian who had just died was said to be going west, and referred to as a Westerner. How the soul got there will be the topic of today's video. Ancient Egypt has always preoccupied the mind of the Westerners, but as we will soon see, the Westerners have always preoccupied the minds of the Egyptians. Join me as I discuss the Egyptian afterlife and the journey to the next world. We begin by recalling the myth of Osiris, perhaps the most important myth about the god of the underworld, in which Osiris dies and is put back together again. Osiris was married to his sister Isis, and he was a great king over Egypt. Sadly, his brother Set became jealous of Osiris's success, and matters were made even worse when Set's wife, Nephthys, tricked Osiris into thinking she was his wife and seduced him. Set, obviously distraught, decided to hatch a vengeful plan on his brother. Set tricks Osiris into entering a chest that was designed to perfectly fit his body. Osiris is killed, and he is set afloat. Isis grieves his death and searches for his body. She goes to Byblos in Phoenicia to gather cedar for the ark in which the body should be buried. There she finds his body and frees him from the chest. This angers Set, and he cuts the body into 14 pieces and scatters them throughout Egypt. Isis journeys to recover all the pieces. She succeeds in finding every piece except for Osiris's penis. She reassembles the body and brings Osiris back to life. Sadly, since he is not complete, he can no longer rule Egypt and descends into the underworld to be the lord of the dead. She builds a prosthetic penis for Osiris and buries his body. This myth outlined the framework by which the Egyptians cared for the dead. In order to get to the afterlife, one had to be properly buried. Isis even makes sure the body is buried in the correct coffin, one made of cedar, which many of the royal sarcophagi were constructed from. The ancient Egyptian concept of the afterlife is further complicated by their understanding of the soul. It's nothing like souls as we understand them today. Just like modern understandings of the soul have changed over time in each religion, so too did the Egyptian concept. I will attempt to summarize it to the best of my abilities. The soul was made up of two main parts, the Ba and the Ka. Just like the ancient Egyptian afterlife, this topic too is muddied by centuries of development and nuance. The afterlife and the texts accompanying it didn't have to fit together or be completely coherent, and neither did the concept of the soul. For this reason, I will highlight the main points. The Ka was seen as a spiritual double. It was your life force, containing attributes that made you, you. In a sense, it was seen as a shadow, one that inhabited you while you were alive and left your body at death. The Ka would reside in your tomb and be able to inhabit not only the body, but the statues that looked like you. This is why there was a need for a Ka statue in tombs. It was a statue that resembled you, and the Ka could reside within it to receive offerings. The Ba, on the other hand, was a different kind of soul. Upon death, it would exit your body and be activated, in a way. This was the part of the soul that had to traverse the afterlife and get to the other side. Perhaps it can be seen as a divine spark, whose full divinity would be granted upon completion of its journey. But again, there is no consensus on how exactly this aspect of the soul should be understood. When going through the underworld, the goal of the Ba is to reach the afterlife and reunite with the Ka, becoming an Ak. This is usually understood to be the glorified soul. Usually represented as a bird, this Ak could travel freely between worlds. The Ak can be described as the transfigured and equipped spirit of light. Through certain spells that we will discuss later, the soul is glorified and becomes an Ak. Effectively, this means the soul of the deceased is now seen as one of the gods. With an understanding of the myth that framed the afterlife, and a general understanding of the ancient Egyptian concept of the soul, we can now begin our journey to the afterlife. Any good journey needs a map, however, and for this we will have to examine 3 specific texts. The first is known as the Book of Two Ways. Within the coffin texts, which we will come back to later, there was a certain map that would be drawn within the coffins on the bottom, on the inside. The Book of Two Ways is the first map of the underworld in ancient Egypt. Unlike the Amduat in the Book of Gates, texts that we will discuss shortly, the Book of Two Ways is a precursor to the later texts of the New Kingdom. Its texts were always addressed directly to the deceased, warning them, or even guiding them through the perilous underworld. The journey began at the eastern horizon and sunrise, which is the opposite of how the journey was understood later, meaning this journey was seen as taking place in the sky instead of under the earth. The text describes a circle of fire and the guardians of the gates of the underworld. The book gives the deceased ways to combat the evils along this journey in the hopes of reaching one of 2 places. First, shown in between the 2 ways, is the region of Rosatau. Said to lie at the boundary of the sky, surrounded by fire and locked in darkness, this region contained the corpse of Osiris. The deceased would want to reach here to achieve immortality, for looking at Osiris brings everlasting life. The second map of the underworld is the Amduat, meaning that which is in the underworld. It can also be seen as another version of the Book of Gates, which is the 3rd book we will discuss. There is a complex relationship behind these 2 texts that I will briefly summarize. The books are divided into the 12 hours of the night, and Ra's journey with the king begins at sunset. Both books contain a series of gates that the deceased must pass through. The Amduat and the Book of Gates depict many of the same gods with similar experiences by the deceased. There are, however, glaring differences. It's important to note that in the study of mythology, both of these texts are correct, so to speak. Even though they can be seen as contradictory, they can also be seen as fail-safes. If one didn't work, the other one surely would. It was all
And in this video, in the Life Explained series, I would like to talk about reincarnation. What is reincarnation? The word carne, of course, means flesh, and incarnation is the process of a soul or spirit entering a physical human body. And reincarnation means the repeated return of that soul or spirit into a human body. Let's take a closer look at it. We are by nature spiritual beings, also called souls. Our true realm of existence is, of course, spirit. So why would some of us want to incarnate, meaning enter the physical body here on earth? Now the reasons are manifold. Some come here to observe, some come here to assist other souls, some come to explore, some come to simply enjoy physicality. But the vast majority of us come here because we are bound to the cycle of reincarnation. Which means we still have unfinished business here on earth. Reincarnation gives us the opportunity to complete and heal anything that has not been resolved or completed in a previous lifetime. As souls, we intuitively know what we still have to clear up. Any hurt, any pain, any loss that has not been atoned for or forgiven will call us back into another life. Nobody is forcing us to go, but we know that we cannot spiritually advance until we have healed everything down here. We therefore have a deep desire to make amends or experience the effects that others once suffered from our thoughts, words, actions, which is called karma. Therefore, out of our own free will, we choose to reincarnate once again. By the way, more on what happens before we incarnate is on my video, Life Before Birth. Now the souls with whom we often have the most of our karma are the members of our future family here on earth. They also have come here for the same reason: to heal and overcome past karmas with each other and with us. Therefore, they are usually of similar vibration than we are. And this is important because we know that our soul can be only attracted to parents of similar vibrations. We may have been in this particular family many times before, but in different constellations and maybe in different sects. It can be that we have been the mother or father of our future parents in a previous lifetime, and together as a family we have created causes that now change us together as karma. And now we have the chance and reincarnate again and loosen these chains and undo this karma, which will result in mutual freedom. What happens here in this family applies to all other people who we meet in our life, at work, in clubs, our neighbors. We either are attracted or repelled by some of them, and that usually means that there is some karmic ties that needs to be cleared up. Now you may wonder, if this is all true, why don't we know much about karma or reincarnation? Well, there is no absolute need to know about reincarnation to have a successful life here on earth. We are all given some wonderful tools that tell us how to live our lives on earth. Most souls incarnate into cultures that have one dominant book of wisdom. That can be the Torah, the Bible, the Quran, and so on. And in all of them, they have the same basic rules of life and the golden rule that says, don't do unto others what you don't want them to do unto you. They say it in different words, but the meaning is the same. And in the Western world, we also have the 10 Commandments and the Sermon on the Mount. They are straightforward, very simple, not complicated. In a few words, we are advised not to kill, not to lie, not to cheat, not to steal, have no idols, and respect our parents and help and assist all those less fortunate than we are. But most of all, also to love and honor God, who is in everyone and everything around us. The problem is that we also know about all these basic rules of life prior our incarnation. But once we are here on this earth plane, we easily forget. We are bombarded by so many distractions and temptations that we can easily forget our ideals and the reason why we incarnated. We get lost in our ego, materialism, and selfishness. So once again, we might make new or similar mistake as in the past, and then we are even more trapped in the cycle of reincarnation. But if we live consciously by the basic rules of life, like the Golden Rule and the 10 Commandments, we can bring our soul into a higher vibration. That means when we die, our soul will then be attracted to a higher level of existence than we were before we incarnated. Eventually, we will no longer need this life and death cycle here on earth and continue our education and our growth of consciousness in the higher realms. Now, some of us may wonder why we usually don't remember any of our previous lifetimes. This is purposely hidden from us because we should live in the here and now, and exact knowledge about our former incarnations would only burden us. Think about it. We may have hundreds of former lives, and many we have done awful things. Now, this knowledge alone would overshadow our decisions in carrying out our daily tasks. Once we understand the dynamics of the law of reincarnation, everything falls into place. Suddenly everything makes sense. Why are some poor, others are rich, some healthy, others sick, why there are wars, and so on. I have always been amazed by the incredible love and perfection that rules our magnificent universe. Naturally, this was only a very short overview, and I hope you are inspired to study more on this incredible subject.
Now that we got that out of the way, if you want to watch more, I'll leave his link below. He is a great researcher in terms of Egyptian. I am a huge fan of his channel. But you all should know that there are many cases of kids actually remembering their past lives. Take a look at this.
For millions of people, reincarnation is an accepted fact. They believe when they die, their souls move on to return in another body. We are making huge strides in unlocking the secrets of memory and brain. But for scientists, the soul is a difficult concept.
It's very hard to scientifically prove anything that is related to what is a soul.
Can this child really be the dead wife of this man? And the mother of a boy her own age? Can this girl carry the spirit of a dead teenager? How can they remember their past lives?
But I do believe that reincarnation should be taken seriously.
There are many strange stories of people claiming to remember earlier lives that at first glance defy explanation. Benares.
जैसे सूर्य है, सूर्य की किरणें अनंत हैं. अब वो सूर्य
Who can count the sunbeams? The sun is a source of endless beams. There are so many souls. The light begins to die, but their souls come back again and again.
Thousands of tales of reincarnation exist in India. On the 11th of December 1926, a girl is born in Delhi. For Hindus, she was to become living proof of their beliefs. Her name was Shanti Devi. Until the age of 4, she never spoke. When she did, her first words were explosive. She told her mother that her home was not in Delhi, but in a town called Matra, 140 kilometers away. She had lived there in her past life. Her name was Lugdi, and her husband was a man called Kedarnath Chobe. Shanti was able to describe the town in astonishing detail, even though she had never been there. She could even remember how she died, giving birth to her son 7 years earlier. For 2 years, Shanti's parents dismissed her words as fantasy. In the end, her mother decided she could no longer ignore her daughter's vivid descriptions. So one of Shanti's uncles traveled to Matra to investigate her claims. What he found seemed to confirm her story. There was a clothmaker living in the town. His wife Lugdi had died in childbirth the year before Shanti Devi was born. His name was Kedarnath Chobe. Was Shanti his wife reborn? Dr. Ravat is one of India's leading specialists on reincarnation. He has spent much of his life retracing Shanti's story and recalls Kedarnath's first encounter with her.
When Kedarnath came to Delhi, and there were a lot of people very curious to know whether Shanti had been talking all nonsense or is there truth in it. But when in the morning, Kedarnath very openly and clearly stated that I am 100% convinced she's Lugdi. The whole thing spread like fire.
You see, it's been told that our talents and fears are never replaced. They're carried on through each lifetime. There's even a video that allows you to remember your past life. I will leave the link below. It actually works to the point of being scary. Yes. Also, a study has shown that most slaves are automatically reincarnated. There have been many studies recently whereas people have been under hypnosis. They all remember being a slave and killed, and judging from the description, most are from the late 1700s and early 1800s. So with that being said, that means that there have been so many slavery deaths back then, it's taken hundreds of years to reincarnate them again, just to have most of their fate met the same way. Again, violent. Some fates are to run away from. I read a book called Wisdom of the Mystic Masters by Joseph J. Weed. In the book, he speaks of different elements of death. He says there are choices. One choice, you can stay in a constant sleep. Second choice, you can live out your innocent fantasies, such as hanging with your recent loved ones and having eternal family bliss. But these choices come after going through a constant cycle of being born again and again until you get everything right, such as life choices and so on, depending on how you died. But he did say that there is a hell, and they do live their hell over and over again, constantly being haunted. Then there's the ones who stay on earth just to torture troubled humans or take over their bodies. But by this time, they're full-blown demons now, not just being possessed by them anymore. They're demons. Well, that's it. I'll leave the link to the book below and everything else that I pretty much put in this video. Let me know your thoughts below. Again, share. Love you all. Bye.